Gripping the therion's wrist in both hands, Zoey used what little traction her feet had left on the floor to jump in the same direction Delilah was pulling her in. In a fight, an opponent can expect a lot of things, but they rarely expect the person they're yanking around to willingly and actively allow themselves to be yanked. The resistance Delilah had been prepared to outmuscle didn't come. Instead, all the force she'd been braced for toppled her in the opposite direction. The direction Zoey was now heading. Keeping her grip on Delilah's wrists and tucking into a flip that carried her over the teetering therion's head, she felt the captured arm snag as the shoulder reached its full extension. Then, toppling and teetering, turned to an all-out backwards fall. Only then did she sacrifice her hold and complete the flip, using her aura to stabilize her in midair and hold her there long enough to pivot so she could land facing her opponent as she crashed into the floor, knocking the wind right out of her lungs. Delilah coughed, an animal sound that was, at the same time, strangely human, and fought to seize a decent breath of air to fill her lungs. "Are you ready to stop this?" Zoey asked, calm and diplomatic, though she knew that Delilah wouldn't give in that easy. She had quite some time to know somebody like her, and it wasn't in their nature to admit defeat without being legitimately defeated. And, since Zoey was finally being honest with herself, she realized that she didn't want Delilah to admit defeat. Not until she was good and satisfied that every therion in that room respected her just as much as Isaac always had. Respected her just as much as she was beginning to respect herself. Delilah didn't disappoint. Still not breathing right, she pulled herself up and lunged, swinging her claws in Zoey's direction like a razor-sharp windmill. The air hissed with each pass, but air was all that received the slicing motions. Zoey ducked, sidestepped, twisted, and dodged again and again, seeing where each frying-pan-sized hand was aimed before the attack was even put into motion. And with each evasion, she landed a blow. The punches weren't meant to hurt. She knew better than to hope that she had any chance of physically matching Delilah's strength. But even if they felt like annoying pokes from a tiny fist, they were undeniably felt. And that meant that each one was an unspoken gotcha chiming in the back of Delilah's mind. Gotcha! 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 But she couldn't get Zoey. With all her muscle and all her bestial rage, she couldn't get a single attack to find the nimble blue-haired vampire. And all the while, she was starting to lag. To all the onlookers in the room, those who didn't know any better at least, they'd assumed Delilah was exhausting herself, maybe putting too much effort into all those failed attacks. And while that might have been true to an extent, what none of them could see was the auric tendril wrapped around Delilah's body. The tendril that pulled down on her with more and more force while simultaneously siphoning more and more of her energy. The tendril that Zoey was using to anchor her opponent while strengthening herself. The last swipe went wide, and Zoey easily ducked under it and let it twist Delilah into an awkward angle that forced her to one knee, panting and blinking against her growing weariness. Confused eyes, still clinging to the flickering shreds of rage, turned to look up at her. Even on her knees, Delilah's therion form was almost as tall as Zoey, but she was looking up all the same. Time for Plan B. Zoey kept the statement, and she made certain Delilah knew it was a statement made in absolute certainty, without a shred of doubt what she had been intending all along. Between the two of them, and the confusion and the lingering rage fell away into total shock that, no, Zoey had not been fooled. With the last of her strength, Delilah let out an angry wail that filled the entire club with the wordless command, "Attack!" Recognizing the sound for what it was, Isaac stepped back, giving the therions around him enough room to transform, and finally started to laugh. Enough. The calmness in Zoey's voice earned an unsettled reaction from the 6 therions who remained standing.